Like I say, as far as extreme death and everything else that happened, well, for one thing, I don't. Although I do extreme death or can do extreme death, I don't do extreme death. Well, I do somewhat extreme death on more like careful, extremely rigorously careful death. Uh, all the destruction, all the death, and all the war basically mostly amounted to, well, mostly it was basically they would go and shoot innocent civilians and then basically occupy the land or whatever. Um, which was really just more like who did it exactly, and then trying to find that person that did it, which is extraordinarily hard, actually. It was very hard to actually get my way up to JFK and Jimmy Carter, um, because they left no evidence behind and all kinds of stuff. And it was a careful, ridiculously careful review of everything, and actually like practically taking the Earth apart piece by piece, molecule by molecule, before we figured it out, or at least looked at the whole time and space, and thousands of hours of people working, and just like over like $5 million. I basically budgeted it at $10 million or something like that. Like I say, JFK, Nixon, and Jimmy Carter, and some of the other ones. Well, I guess they figured eventually, it would come to pass that people would know eventually, um, and eventually, like the bigger, more crazy things out there in the galaxy would eventually come home to roost. These pigeons are gonna come home to roost eventually. I mean, Nixon warned, or somebody warned anyway. I mean, eventually they wouldn't get away with it. I mean, even if they killed every single life form on Earth, I mean, 800 galaxies, me, I am truly unique throughout the universe, probably. So, you know, whatever that they plan to do probably wouldn't work out for them eventually. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like I said, 100 trillion year old creators of 800 galaxies don't just go missing. They're 100 trillion years old, and they're very powerful to begin with, which I was. Also very rich. So anything that Rodney planned to do, or Nixon, or, I mean, like I said, there are things out there that don't really consider death to be a problem or a reason why not to torture someone. They're like, dead, alive, dead, alive. Not really a big deal. We'll just get you now. You've already done it, so there you go. Into the slammer or into death you go. I mean, like I say, I think Nixon just was going on this thing like saying that there are the dust. That's the stars are really just dust. We're actually just alone, and there's nothing really up there or something. He was doing all this weird stuff back in some point in time and space, trying to get people fooled or something that there aren't actually galaxies or universes out there, or other life forms out there. Of course, there's other life forms out there, just like here on Earth. I mean, there was 12, right? 12, like lots of life forms in these planets right here. There's a colony on Mars. There's lots of life forms all around us. In fact, that's kind of why they came here, is because I was here. And there's also 800 other galaxies just like this one, out there in space. In fact, what you actually see when you're looking at a star is actually probably a galaxy or something like that, and not just a star. There was this problem where I couldn't see the other stars out there, and so they made more of them. Just kind of, I did the first stars or whatever, so they're like, okay, we'll make more. Or something like that. Like I say, life forms out there in the universe did know me and do know me, so they just did stuff. So I could see the pretty stars that I'd created long, long ago. Anyway, I'm 100 trillion years old, like I said, or older actually. And so, I mean, of course, Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, all the others, I mean, they would know that eventually. I mean, sleeping inside my house, fooling everyone, doing this, doing that. It's a momentary problem at that, and in the grand scheme of things, really isn't all that significant when you really consider it. I mean, 800 galaxies and 100 trillion years, they're probably going to have time travel by then. And in fact, a lot of my races got time travel and had time travel and then had some problems, or had some problems and then got time travel to deal with those problems. So I had 12 other races, and they each had problems on their home planet first, and then they got time travel to deal with those problems and overcame that. And then this is somewhere in time and space from that. I don't really know. Anyway, so like I said, lots of my life forms that I created, like when you're a creator and you invent and create life forms, they go out into the universe and exist. Once created, not uncreated. Unless you can take out the creator permanently, which is basically impossible with me, because I lead to so much other life. Normally, a person's lifespan or existence is about the size of this tip, and my lifespan or existence was like this much or this much. I don't know, somewhere around in there, quite a bit, basically. Even my existence as Brian was like is like this big or whatever, and then there's the larger existence of what I was. Anyway, so although Nixon and the other ones could kind of play around in time and space and kind of do this and do that, it would take me a while to figure out who it was and where they were and what they were doing exactly. Basically, taking 3,500 other people and running around killing people, torturing people, doing everything possible, I think. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I've gotten the information a little bit on it and paid for a lot of information to be found on them and even designated some other planets to deal with this problem. Earth was a problem anyway. Anyway, it's all complicated and confusing, basically. But it's like, when I was in Europe and I was working with British people, we designed all the cars and stuff, and like a lot of those buses and stuff are actually like my buses. Steel, when they were created, steel wasn't exactly stable. Like I said, it's not stable steel. It was somewhat stable steel. It still rusted and corroded and fell apart. So aluminum was actually the much better way to go, which was soft, but it didn't fall apart as fast. I think we had stabilized it. I forget this whole inventing thing where we just had cast iron and we didn't really have steel yet or something. We were still having some problems with that. So anyway, though, I said go ahead and use aluminum. We had this huge aluminum plant churning out aluminum. Aluminum has its own little problems. Eventually, after a short time, we got both of them stabilized and perfected and everything. But thousands of hours of work and millions of dollars and stuff like that, and whole teams, working on making better aluminum, better steel, and all that, better thinner steel sheeting and all that, and compressing it down. You put it out, and then I think you compress it down or something like that in the sheets or something. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I used to know all about this stuff because I fabricated so much of it. I mean, we built aircraft, we built planes, all the Cessna things. I eventually stopped building aircraft and basically was like, well, they kept on putting like 50 cals on the. They would take a Cessna and then they would bolt 50 cals onto the wings, and sometimes the 50 cals would rip off. Like, I'm serious. They would just take bolts and just like pop rivet the damn gun on there. It's like, that's what you call a war aircraft? What is that? I built a war aircraft and it's like guns all fit in, arm ammo racks right there, so you can just like a real war aircraft. Other people did basically like these ammo box on the wing too. Go change the ammo. Walking to change the ammo belt over his shoulder. Because that's all they could come up with or something like that. It's like, wow, how low we have gone. Because I built all the war aircraft, and then after the war, I was like, all right, that's enough. Cut it off. So some people in like these third world countries and stuff still want to do war or something like that, or still want to kill people, and it's like, no, that's not really going to happen. I sold jets, but still, it's like, well, they follow you back to your airbase and they kill you when you're sleeping in bed because you murdered like their whole family. So, you better be doing something for a damn good reason, but it's called Blood Feud. It started out about 10,000 years ago in the Middle East. Like I say, you want to know war, go to the Middle East. They know all about war. Blood feuds that last 10,000 years and all kinds of stuff. They've forgotten more about war than most people know. So, I don't really get into that. I mostly basically just say, stop that, stop that, stop that, stop that, stop that. Don't do that. But and that's just on Earth. There are, like I say, 800 galaxies, and I think there have been some truly monumental wars, like with other life forms, where it's like queens and hives and stuff like that, where it's just like full on death and whatever. But mostly it's just like smaller skirmishes, one crowd overcrowding, that kind of thing, basically. Anyway, though, bleh.